The sixth strange thing was the one nobody bothered to write down for me. By the time I understood what it meant, I'd already done the exact thing you're never supposed to do out there, and I'd done it on purpose, with my eyes open, because part of me wanted it to be true more than I wanted to be safe. I want to tell it in order, though, because if I just start at the end, you won't believe me. And honestly, I wouldn't blame you. 6 months ago, I wouldn't have believed me either. Let me back up. My name's Daniel Cole. Most people call me Danny, which always felt young for a guy pushing 53. But there it is. I spent 22 years running a folder gluer machine at a corrugated box plant outside Marianne. Loud, boring, honest work, and I was good at it. Then a company in Chicago bought the plant, and one Tuesday they walked us into the break room and told us Marianne was consolidating, like we were a spill they were wiping up. So at 52, I was out of work in a town that didn't have much work to be out of, and behind on more than I'd admit to a stranger. When my buddy Reggie said a demolition outfit needed overnight security and cleanup at the old Starlight Gardens amusement park, 17 an hour, nobody to answer to. I called that same afternoon. I need you to understand I am not a superstitious man. I don't read horoscopes. I've never once in my life felt a presence. When people at work used to talk about ghosts or lights in the sky, I'd nod and think about lunch. I say that not to brag, but so you'll know what kind of person this happened to. It didn't happen to some sensitive kid who was looking for it. It happened to a tired, divorced machine operator who mostly wanted the shift to end so he could go home and sleep. The other thing you should know, because it matters later, is about my daughter. Her name was Nora. She'd be 26 now. She isn't, though. She stopped being any age at all when she was 7. At a county fair 2 counties over, on a July night that I have replayed so many times it doesn't feel like a memory anymore. More like a movie I was forced to watch until the edges wore off. I let go of her hand for less than a minute. I was arguing on the phone with a foreman about a shift I didn't want to take. When I looked up, she was gone from beside me, and she'd wandered out toward the parking lots looking for the car, because she was tired, and I hadn't been listening when she said so. A man backing a truck out of a row never saw her. I heard it before I understood it. Nora loved the carousel. Not the roller coasters, not the games. The carousel. There was one horse she always wanted, a blue one with a chipped ear and a gold-painted mane, and she named it Comet even though it wasn't going anywhere. She'd wave at me every time it came around. Every single time, like she hadn't just seen me 4 seconds ago. Hi, Dad. Hi, Dad. I'm telling you that now so I don't have to explain it later, when it starts to matter. The demolition foreman was a heavyset guy named Val, who chewed toothpicks flat and talked fast. He walked me around Starlight Gardens on my first evening, just before sundown, and even in its dead state you could tell it had been something once. It sat on maybe 40 acres of overgrown lot with a rusted archway at the front that still said Starlight in curled iron letters, missing the G so it read Starly HT. Inside there was a midway gone to weeds, a Ferris wheel frozen at a slight tilt, a fun house with a peeling clown face over the door, a mirror maze, a couple of flat rides collapsed into themselves, and a carousel under a domed roof with about half its horses still standing. The place had closed in the late 90s, Val said, after some trouble he didn't elaborate on, and it had sat in legal limbo for almost 30 years while relatives sued each other over the land. Now the county had finally cleared it for demolition. My job was simple. Keep an eye on the place overnight so scrappers and kids didn't get in and get hurt and sue everybody. And slowly clear out the small junk, flyers, bottles, fallen signage, whatever, into the dumpster by the gate, so the wrecking crew had a clean site when they started in the spring. 12-hour shifts, 6 to 6, Val said. You'll be alone, that bother you? No, I said. It didn't. Alone was fine. Alone was, at that point, most of my life. He handed me a ring of keys and a laminated sheet, folded in half, soft at the creases from other hands. House rules, he said. Previous guys made this up. I'd honor it personally. I almost laughed. You believe in this stuff, Val? He didn't smile. He rolled his toothpick from one side of his mouth to the other and looked out at the carousel dome for a second longer than the question needed. I believe in not having to hire a 5th guy this year, he said. and then he got in his truck and left me there as the sun went down. I unfolded the sheet under the work light in the little security shed by the gate. Someone had typed it, and someone else had added to it by hand over the years. Different pens, different handwriting. It was labeled at the top in block capitals. Things about Starlight, red IT. There were 6. I read them the way you read the safety card in an airplane seat back, skimming, half a smirk on my face. I want to give them to you exactly as they were written, because I've had a long time to memorize them. 1. The carousel will sometimes be warm even in winter. If a single horse is warmer than the rest, do not touch it. Do not look for who is sitting on it. 2. The ticket booth by the front gate is empty. If you hear coins being counted inside it, keep walking and do not count along in your head. You will lose your place. That is the point. 3. In the mirror maze, you will always see one more reflection than there are people. Do not try to figure out which one is extra. Some nights it is you. 4. The lost and found is the wooden bin behind the funhouse. It should be empty. If children's shoes are in it, leave them. Do not pair them up. Do not bring them inside the shed. 5. At 3:11 in the morning, the park speakers may play music, even though the power to them was cut in 1998. Do not sing along. Do not hum. Let it finish. And then the 6th one, which was written last, in a different hand than all the others, in pencil that had gone soft and gray with age. It didn't sound like a rule. It sounded like something somebody needed to get off their chest before they quit. 6. If you hear a child calling for a parent, for their mom, for their dad, it is not a child. It knows what you have lost. It will use the exact voice. Whatever you do, do not answer it, and do not go toward it. Once you answer, it knows your name, and then every night after that it will call you home. I read number 6 twice. Then I folded the sheet back up, set it on the desk, and told myself, out loud, in the empty shed, that people are strange and lonely, and they'll build a whole mythology out of an old building and a couple of raccoons. I meant it too. I want that on the record. I meant it completely. I did not sleep well that first night, but not because of anything unusual. Just the newness of it. The size of the dark, the way the wind came through the frame of the Ferris wheel and made this low, steady tone like someone blowing over a bottle. By 4 in the morning, I'd walked the whole park twice with my flashlight, seen nothing but weeds and rust and my own breath, and I'd started to relax into the boredom of it, which is the thing about a job like that. Even fear gets boring if nothing feeds it. The first week, nothing did. I got into a rhythm. Walk the perimeter, clear junk into the dumpster, flatten cups, a box of old ride tickets, bleached warning signs, then breaks in the shed with a thermos and a paperback. I texted my sister sometimes. She's the only family I've really got left. My ex-wife Carol and I don't talk, and I don't blame her. We couldn't be in a room together after Nora without one of us breaking, and it was usually me. It was the 8th night that the first strange thing happened, and it happened so quietly that I almost let myself explain it away. I was clearing bottles near the carousel around 1 in the morning. It was late November, cold enough that I had 2 shirts and a jacket on, and my hands ached. I brushed against one of the horses as I bent for a bottle, a plain white one on the outer ring, and it was cold, of course, cold as everything else out there. But 3 horses down, without any reason, I felt heat. You know how you can feel a running engine before you touch it? Like that, a warmth coming off one horse when I was still a foot away. I stopped. I'm not proud of what I did next, which is that I ignored the rule and I looked. Because I'm a machine guy. Warm metal means friction. Friction means something moved. Something moving in a dead park at 1 a.m. is a person. And a person is a problem I know how to handle. So I raised the flashlight and I found it. It was the blue horse. Chipped ear. Gold mane, most of the paint worn off, but you could see where it had been. And it was warm the way a car seat is warm when somebody's just gotten out of it. That specific fading body heat. And the pole it rode on had that faint smell you don't notice until you notice it. The smell of a kid's hair after a long day outside. Sweat and sun and cotton candy. I stood there with my flashlight shaking, telling myself blue horses are common on carousels. Telling myself lots of them have chipped ears. Telling myself heat rises in pockets and does strange things in the cold. And every single one of those things was true, and none of them explained the smell. I didn't touch it. I'll give myself that. I backed away and I went to the shed and I sat with the heater running and I did not sleep. And when the sun came up, I told myself I'd imagined the warmth entirely, but I'd written it down. That's the thing. Somewhere in that first shaky hour, I'd taken out my phone and typed in my notes app, Carousel, blue horse, warm, smells like her. And you don't write something down if part of you doesn't already know it's real. I told myself I'd quit. Every morning for 2 weeks, I drove home swearing I'd call Val, and every afternoon I woke up, looked at what I owed, and drove back out. That's how something like this gets its hooks in you. It isn't dramatic. There's no hand grabbing your ankle. It's just a warm horse and a smell and a stack of bills. And you keep going back because leaving costs more than staying, until one day the math has quietly changed, and you can't leave at all. The second thing started around the third week. I was walking the front stretch near the gate, close to midnight, and I heard coins. That clean little sound of change being sorted and stacked, dimes onto dimes, quarters onto quarters, coming from inside the ticket booth. The booth is a plywood box the size of a phone booth with a smudged sliding window, and it was. I want to be emphatic about this. Completely empty. I'd cleaned it out myself. It didn't even have a stool in it. I stood outside it in the cold and I listened to money being counted by nobody. And here is where I made my second mistake, though it took me a while to understand it was one. I didn't answer it. I didn't open the door. I remembered the rule, but I listened. And without deciding to, I started counting along in my head, the way you can't not do when someone's counting near you. 10, 20, 30, 40, and I lost my place. I don't know how to describe it except that. 1 second I was standing at the booth around midnight, and the next second the cold had changed, gone sharper and deeper, and when I checked my phone it was 2:40 in the morning. Almost 3 hours, gone. I'd walked to the far end of the midway without any memory of doing it. My flashlight was off, and I don't turn my flashlight off. And I had, cupped in my hand, without any idea how it got there, a single dime, warm as the horse had been warm. You will lose your place. That is the point. I threw the dime into the weeds, and I did not sleep again that night either. After that, I stopped smirking at the sheet. I read it every evening before my shift the way some men say grace. For a while, a couple of weeks, following the rules seemed to work. The park would do its small, impossible things, and I would look away from them, and nothing came closer. The carousel breathed heat some nights, and I didn't look. The booth counted its money, and I walked past with my fingers in my ears like a child. I stopped going near the mirror maze at all after one night I glanced into the dark glass by its entrance, and, without meaning to, counted the shapes in there, and came up with 2 of me when there was only 1. There's a version of this story where I just keep doing that, running out the clock until spring, until the wrecking ball, and I go home and I never tell anybody. That's not this story, because of the 4th thing, the shoes. I found the first pair around the 2nd week of December. The lost and found was exactly where the sheet said, a weathered wooden bin behind the fun house. And I'd checked it a dozen times because part of my job was clearing junk, and every time it had been empty, except for leaves. That night it wasn't empty. There was 1 small shoe in it. A kid sneaker, maybe a size for a 5 or 6-year-old, red, with a Velcro strap and a cartoon on the side worn almost off. It was not old. It was not weathered. It looked like it had been worn that afternoon by a child who'd run through mud, because there was fresh mud on it, still damp, in a park where no child had set foot in 30 years. I left it. The sheet said leave it, and I left it. The next night there were 2, a different pair. Then 3 shoes, then 5, none of them matching. All of them small, all of them recent. Some with a little sock still balled up inside them, and I understood, in a cold, slow way, whose shoes these were supposed to be. And I understood that the park was showing me something it wanted me to feel. And I hated it, and I could not stop checking the bin every night to see how many there were. That's the trap, see? The rules keep you physically safe, but they can't keep you from wanting. The park had figured out what I wanted. It had probably figured it out that first night at the carousel. And every strange thing after that was just the park leaning closer, learning me, the way you learn a lock by feeling for the give in it. I want to tell you about the 5th thing now, because it's the night everything turned. The night I stopped being a man who followed the rules and started being a man who broke one. It was 3 days before Christmas. I was the only person for miles who wasn't somewhere warm with somebody they loved. And I was aware of it in that heavy way you get aware of things at that hour. I was sitting in the shed with the heater going, not reading, just looking at a photo on my phone. It's the only good one I have of Nora on the carousel, on the blue horse, mid-wave, mouth open in the middle of Hi Dad, the flash catching her whole face lit up with a joy that I had, that entire evening, been too busy to really look at. I've looked at it maybe 10,000 times since to make up for it. It doesn't work like that. You can't save up looking. At 3:11 the speakers came on. I'd been braced for it for weeks, and it still stopped my heart. All around the dead park, from speakers I'd personally confirmed had no power running to them, cut in 98, hanging off their poles with the wires green and rotted. From all of them at once came music, carousel music. That waltzing, wheezing, calliope sound, warped like it was coming through water. Slow and then slower, and under it, so quiet I told myself I was imagining it, a child humming along. The sheet said, "Don't sing, don't hum, let it finish." I put my hands over my mouth. I did not hum. I let it play. It went on for what felt like an hour and was probably 4 minutes, and near the end the humming child got closer to the shed, right up against the window, and I kept my hands a voice out. Dad. I knew that voice. Of course I knew that voice. There's no voice I know better and no voice I've wanted to hear more in 19 years. It was Nora's. Not a recording, not an imitation. Hers, the specific way she used to say it. That little rise at the end, half a question. The voice of a kid who's lost her father in a crowd and just spotted him. Dad, where'd you go? It knows what you have lost. It will use the exact voice. I sat in that shed with my hand over my mouth and I shook, and I did not answer. Because the last rule, the one written in soft pencil by somebody who'd clearly heard the same thing I was hearing, said not to. And everything else on that sheet had been true. So this was true too, and answering would be the worst mistake a person could make. Dad, I'm cold. I've been waiting so long. Why didn't you come get me? Is the exact sentence I have been afraid of for 19 years. It's the sentence at the bottom of every bad night. Because I didn't. I let go of her hand, and I didn't come get her, and she went out toward the parking lot alone in the dark looking for me, and by the time I came the running it was already over. I bit down on my own hand until I tasted blood, and I did not answer, and eventually the voice stopped, and the longest night of my life finally turned gray at the edges into morning. I drove home and I sat in my driveway for an hour without going inside. I want you to understand I had decided, truly decided, that I was done. Not just quitting the job. Done with the whole idea that anything out there had anything to do with my daughter. It was a thing. A cruel thing. Wearing her like a code Val's number to quit. It went to voicemail. I said I'd call back. I didn't. Because that afternoon when I couldn't sleep, I did the thing that finished me. I looked up Starlight Gardens. Really looked past the surface stuff. Into the old newspaper archives my sister has access to through the library where she works. Some trouble in the late 90s, Val, had 7-year-old girl went missing at Starlight Gardens during the evening rush. She was there with her father. He looked away. The article didn't say why. It never says why. But I know why. It's always the same why. But when he looked back, she was gone. They searched the park for 3 days. They drained the little duck pond. They never found her. Not a shoe, not a sock, nothing. The park closed that autumn under the weight of it and never reopened. And the fairgoers stopped coming to the whole region for a while. And there were, the article noted almost as an afterthought, 4 other children over the park's 40-year history who had wandered off and were never recovered. A phrase that had apparently been common enough that the park had a wooden lost and found bin for the things left behind. 5 over the years. And a bin behind the fun house that fills up with small shoes. And I sat there in my kitchen, and I understood the thing that changed me from a man following rules into a man about to break the biggest one. I understood that whatever was out there wasn't only wearing my daughter. It was keeping children. It had been keeping them for decades. And if that was true, is still out there. Cold, waiting, asking why nobody came. Then the rule I'd been so proud of following. The rule that said do not answer. Do not go toward it. wasn't protecting me from a monster. It was making me do to those kids exactly what I did to Nora. It was making me look away. I know how that sounds. I know a healthier man would have seen a trap dressed up as a rescue and stayed home. But I am not a healthy man. Since a July night in a parking lot, and the thing out at Starlight Gardens had spent 2 months learning precisely where I was broken, and now it laid the one bait I was never, ever going to walk away from. It offered me the chance to come get her. I went back that night with a plan that wasn't a plan. I brought a flashlight and a crowbar, which was stupid, because you can't hit a voice, but a man needs to hold something. I told my sister where I was, in a text in case. She texted back, "Danny, please don't," and I turned the phone face down. It was Christmas Eve. The park was dead quiet when I got there. No wind even. The Ferris wheel not making its low note for once, the whole place holding its breath. I walked the midway past the ticket. Booth was full now, overflowing, small shoes spilling into the weeds. Dozens of them, way more than 5 kids worth. And I didn't stop to count because I knew if I started counting I'd lose my place and my nerve. I went to the carousel. The blue horse was warm, warmest I'd ever felt it. The whole carousel was breathing heat like a living thing in the cold, and the smell of a kid's summer hair was everywhere. And I stood at the edge of the platform, and I said the thing you're never supposed to say. I said, "Nora, I'm here. Dad's here." I answered it. The temperature dropped so fast the sweat froze on my neck, and the carousel, 30 years without power, gears seized with rust, I'd inspected them myself. The carousel began, very slowly, to turn. No music, just the groan of old metal moving that shouldn't move, and the horses beginning their slow circle, up and down, and on the blue horse, coming around toward me the way she used to come around toward me 10,000 times, was a small shape. A little girl in a summer dress, backlit, features I couldn't make out, one hand raised. "Hi, Dad," and I nearly went to her. I had one foot on the platform. Every broken thing in me was straining toward that little waving shape, because it was her. It looked like her. It moved like her. And I had spent 19 years dreaming of exactly this and swearing I'd do anything, give anything, if I could just once more. She came around a second time. "Hi, Dad," and a third. "Hi, Dad." The exact same wave, the exact same tilt of the head, the exact same 3 seconds, looping, perfect, dead. And I want to tell you what stopped me, because it wasn't courage, and it wasn't the rules. It was the photo, the one on my phone. Nora on this exact horse, mid-wave, and in the photo, in the real one, in the only true thing I had left, she wasn't looping. She was moving. She was alive and messy and slightly out of frame because she never held still. And each wave was a little different because it was a real child doing a real thing. Badly, wonderfully, once. This thing on the carousel waved the same wave every time. Perfect. Frozen. A recording of a gesture by something that had watched children do it for 40 years, and had learned the shape of it without ever once understanding what it was for. It wasn't her. It had never been her. It didn't have her. It only had the wave. And whatever those 5 kids were now, wherever the real parts of them had gone, they weren't on that horse either. That was the cruelest thing I understood, standing there with one foot on the platform. The park hadn't kept them. It had only kept the wave, the shoes, the sound of "Why didn't you come get me?" The leftover shapes of grief, worn smooth, played back forever to lonely men on the night shift to pull them in one at a time. I took my foot off the platform. The waving shape stopped waving. For 1 second the whole thing looked at me. I felt it look. The carousel and the booth and the mirror maze and the speakers and the bin of shoes. All of it, one attention turning toward me at once. And it was not a child's attention. There was nothing of a child in it at all. It was old and patient and vast and hungry in a way that had nothing to do with food. And it had been so sure, right up until that second, that it had me. "You're not her," I said. My voice didn't shake. That surprised me. "You never were, and I'm not looking away from you. I see exactly what you are. You just don't get to be her too." I turned my back on the carousel, which every part of the rule book and every part of my body screamed at me not to do, and I walked past the overflowing bin, and I did not pair the shoes. past the ticket booth, which started counting fast and frantic, coins flying, trying to make me lose my place. But I wasn't counting the booth's money anymore. I was counting Nora, the real one, the messy alive one, and she is a number that thing could never touch. The only path to the gate ran along the front of the mirror maze, and I knew better than to look, and I looked anyway, because the glass had come alive in the dark, lit faint and silver from nowhere, and a man can't always help himself. There was a whole hallway of me in there. A dozen Danny Coles, all of them turned toward the gate, all of them leaving, except one, walking out. Behind all the others, one reflection wasn't walking out. It was standing still, facing the carousel, and its hand was up, waving, slow and patient and perfect. The exact wave the little shape on the blue horse had made, except it was me making it now. A me that had stepped onto the platform. A me that had answered and stayed, already fitted into the shape the park keeps ready for the ones who give in. You will always see one more reflection than there are people. Some nights it is you. That was the reflection it had been saving all along. That was the version of me it had been so sure it was about to get. I don't know how close I came to being him. I only know I didn't look a second time. I ran. I made it to the gate. The music came on behind me all at once. Every speaker, the calliope shrieking now, no longer sweet, and under it not one child's voice but many, 5, more than 5, a whole choir of Dad, where'd you go? In voices that were not my daughter and had never been anybody's daughter. I walked out under the Starlight HT sign, got in my truck, and drove. And I did not once look in the rearview mirror the whole way home, because I knew, the way you know things at that hour, exactly what would be sitting in the back seat if I did. One more of me than there should be, with its hand already coming up to wave. I quit the next morning. Val didn't argue. When I told him what happened, some of it the parts a man can say out loud, he just rolled his toothpick and nodded slowly and said, "That's about how the last one described it." I asked him why he keeps sending people out there if he knows. He looked at me for a long moment and said, "Because the county pays me to keep it standing till spring, and it's easier to find a man than to explain why I won't." Then he paid me what I was owed, in cash, and I never went back. They demolished Starlight Gardens in April. I read about it. The carousel was the last thing to come down, the article said, because the crew had unexpected difficulty with the mechanism, which had apparently seized in a way that took them 2 extra days and a bigger machine to break. I thought about that for a long time. I still do. I'm doing better now. I want you to know that, because a story like this shouldn't just leave you in the dark. I called Carol, my ex-wife, for the first time in years, and I told her some of it, and we cried on the phone for an hour, and now we talk sometimes about Nora, the real one, and it turns out you can share the weight of a thing you thought you had to carry alone. I go to the cemetery now. I never used to. I couldn't. Now I go and I sit and I tell her about my week, and I don't feel a presence, and that's all right. Absence is honest. Absence, at least, isn't trying to trick you. I thought that was the end of it. I really did. It's been 8 months. The park is gone. Grass is growing over where the carousel stood. I sleep most nights. But there's one more thing, and it's the reason I finally wrote all this down. Because I've told nobody, and I can't hold it by myself anymore. Last week I got home from the cemetery, and there was a package on my porch. No label, no postage, just a small box. The kind a pair of children's shoes comes in. My hands knew before my head did. I stood on the porch a long time before I opened it. Inside was a single red sneaker, size for a 5 or 6-year-old, Velcro strap, a cartoon on the side worn almost off, fresh mud on the sole, still faintly damp, and tucked into the toe, folded small, in that same soft pencil as the 6th rule. In handwriting I now recognized as belonging to whoever had come before me and left before they could warn the next man properly, was a note. It said, "You didn't answer the second time. Good. Neither did I. But it remembers your name now. It's patient, and it's building something new 2 counties over. If you ever hear the music again, anywhere, I am so sorry. Don't wave back. I've thrown that shoe away 3 times. 3 separate trash days, 3 separate weeks. It keeps being on my porch in the morning. And last night, very faint, from somewhere far off in the dark past my fence line, under the wind, so quiet I told myself I imagined it, I heard a calliope warming up.